It is definitely recommended herein that one concentrate his mind upon the form of Vishnu. There are 12 different forms of Vishnu which are described in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. One cannot concentrate his mind on anything void or impersonal. The mind should be fixed on the personal form of the Lord, whose attitude is cheerful, as described in this verse. Bhagavad Gita states that meditation on the impersonal or void features is very troublesome to the meditator. Those who are attached to the impersonal or void features of meditation have to undergo a difficult process because we are not accustomed to concentrating our minds upon anything impersonal. Actually, such concentration is not even possible. Bhagavad Gita also confirms that one should concentrate his mind on the personality of Godhead. The color of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is described here as Nilotpaladala, meaning that it is like that of a lotus flower with petals tinted blue and white. People always ask why Krishna is blue. The color of the Lord has not been imagined by an artist. It is described in authoritative scripture. In the Brahma Samhita also, the color of Krishna's body is compared to that of a bluish cloud. The color of the Lord is not poetical imagination. There are authoritative descriptions in the Brahma Samhita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and many of the Puranas of the Lord's body, his weapons, and all other paraphernalia. The Lord's appearance is described here as Padma Garbharunekshanam. His eyes resemble the inside of a lotus flower, and in his 4 hands he holds the 4 symbols: conch shell, discus, mace, and lotus. So we are seeing here in this chapter Kapila's instructions on devotional service, which he is delivering to his mother. And the last few verses we have been seeing that how the meditator has to control his mind and purify himself, and with half closed eyes he should meditate. And in this particular verse and in the next few verses, Kapila is going to describe what the yogi should meditate upon. So here he is saying, prasanna vadanam bhojam. He should meditate on the form of Vishnu, who has got a cheerful countenance. Padma Garbharunekshanam, and who has eyes like that of the Padma Garbha, like the interiors of a lotus. And he has a form, Nilotpaladala. He has a complexion which is swarthy, dark complexion, like the blue lotus. Someone can tell them to be little silent out there? Thank you. And he has Shankha Chakra Gadadharam, and he holds the 4 symbols: conch shell, disc, mace, and lotus. And Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here in the purport that it is very clear that one has to meditate on the form of Vishnu and not something impersonal or void. Somehow it has become very fashionable for people, and they talk about meditating on something which is impersonal and some kind of a light, or the Buddhists say, or not really the Buddhists who don't say that, but some of the contemporary followers of Buddhism say that you should meditate on the sound of one hand clapping. So so all these kind of ideas are present, and people like to talk about all this. But actually it is a fact that how can anyone meditate on something impersonal, void, formless, featureless, qualityless? Because the mind, moment it starts meditating, to empty the mind and to meditate on all something impersonal, is so difficult and troublesome. And then in the second part of the purport, Prabhupada is talking about Nilotpala Dala Shyamam. Krishna has a bluish complexion, which is another thing that many people ask. I remember one time I was talking to some family members, and they were telling that our son asked the question, he's a small boy, why is Krishna blue? And Swamiji, can you explain? And then I tried to explain that Krishna is blue as it is described in the Vedic literatures. And somehow they are not very happy to hear. And then they were saying, no, Swamiji, that, that explanation which is there, Krishna is unlimited, the sky is unlimited, the sky is blue, and hence Krishna is blue. All these kind of, they want to hear some kind of a explanation like that. But that is not the way we understand. The authoritative Vedic literatures describe Krishna is like this. This is not some poetical imagination, somebody's fancy. Someone is thinking like this, he has 4 arms and he has... Somebody came up with this idea, and so... No, it is not like that. These are the words given, descriptions given in the Vedic literatures, and we take them as it is. How is it that Vishnu has 4 arms? We are not very familiar with that kind of a thing. We only know 2 arms. Sometimes devotees ask this kind of questions to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, we hear that there are devatas with 4 heads, Chaturmukha Brahma and all that. But we have no experience of such thing. So Prabhupada said, what experience do you actually have? Right? We have our experience of this earth and few things that we see here. It's not, have you experienced everything in the universe? Have you gone to other lokas, other planets, and have you seen what is there? So, like this, we tend to make some conclusions based on our limited experience. This is not the way to understand spiritual Vedic knowledge. We take the knowledge as it is given in the Vedic literatures. This is very nicely explained. This is such an important factor, such an important aspect of Krishna consciousness. The art of understanding and explaining Vedic literatures was described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This happened in Varanasi. It happens more than once, but this particular explanation Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave in Varanasi, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Varanasi for 2 months. He visited twice. Once on his way to Vrindavan, and on his way back again he visited. So he stayed for 2 months, and he spoke extensively on the science of Krishna consciousness to Sanatan Goswami daily. And Sanatan Goswami would hear and he would make notes, and then that became the basis of so many literatures that Sanatan Goswami wrote. So it was very important discussions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was having. And Varanasi is a place where there are a lot of Shankaracharya followers. Even now, and it must have been even more those days. And so these followers of Shankaracharya, they were surprised to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was a sannyasi, and singing and dancing in the streets with a few other followers. So they were very intrigued by this, and finally they arranged a meeting, and all the innumerable sannyasis of Varanasi gathered, and they invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for a discussion. And in that discussion, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes. We are familiar that how he came and washed his feet, and he sat right there in a very relatively unclean place. And then the head sannyasi among them said, no, why are you sitting there? And he brought him and gave him an appropriate seat. And then the conversation happened. Relatively, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was younger when compared to all these other sannyasis. And he was young, and he was very, very beautiful. And so they asked him that you are a young sannyasi, and as a sannyasi you should be reading Vedanta Sutra. But Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra. But we see you singing and dancing in the streets. What is happening? And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives a whole lot of explanation that how his guru considered him to be a fool and told him to read, chant Krishna's name and not Vedanta. You don't have any qualifications to read Vedanta, etc. All of that. And much later, when they ask him another question, all right, you can be a good devotee, you are a great devotee of Krishna, and that's so nice to see. We have no objection to you being a devotee of Krishna. Why don't you study Vedanta Sutra also? What is your objection? What is the fault in that? So at that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained some very interesting things which describe the art of understanding, studying, reading, understanding Vedic literatures. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Upanishad Sahita Sutra kahe ei tattva mukhya vritye sei artha parama mahatva. Because they asked him the question, why are you not studying Upanishad Sutra, Vedanta Sutra? So he's saying, Upanishad Sahita Sutra kahe ei tattva. Sutra here refers to Brahma Sutras or Vedanta Sutras. One of the important Vedic literatures, especially Vedanta Sutras, the very elevated, very sublime, very lofty ideas of Vedic knowledge is described in the Vedanta. And that's why it is called Veda Anta, end of knowledge. So the ultimate of Vedic knowledge is presented in the form of Vedanta Sutra, and that was their question. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's explanation is, Upanishad Sahita Sutra kahe tattva. The Upanishads, the Sutras, also describe the same truth. And the truth is about Krishna. And the truth is love of Krishna. To understand Krishna, and to understand Krishna, the only way to understand Krishna is by bhakti. And that is the truth of all the Vedic literatures, including the Upanishad Sahita Sutra. Kahe tattva. But then those Mayavadi sannyasis have not come to that conclusion because they are studying sutras, Vedanta sutras and Upanishads extensively. Why is that so? So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Mukhya Vritye Sei Artha Parama Mahatva. You will come, he has used an expression here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mukhya Vritye. He's referring to Mukhya Vritti. Mukhya Vritye Sei Artha Parama Mahatva. Mukhya Vritti means direct meanings of the Vedic literatures. If you take the Mukhya Vritti, Sei Artha, then you will understand that conclusion is about Krishna and devotion to Krishna. And that Parama Mahatva, that is the supreme glory of the Vedic literatures. And then in the next verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Gaunavritye Eva Bhashya Karile Acharya. He has used another word, Gaunavritye. So, in the previous verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used the word Mukhya Vritti, and in this verse, Gaunavritti. Mukhya means direct, Gauna means indirect. Prabhupada explains this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita purports, and he says, Mukhya Vritti, another meaning of the word Mukhya Vritti is also called Abhidha Vritti. Abhidha in Sanskrit means dictionary. So Mukhya Vritti or Abhidha Vritti is the immediate meaning that becomes obvious when you read a Vedic literatures as per the meanings of the dictionaries. That is why it is known as Abhidha Vritti or Mukhya Vritti. When you read something, what does that mean? The words have meanings from the dictionary. And you take the meanings from the dictionary and you read it like that. That's the direct meaning. And that is the way to read the Vedic literatures. And on the other hand, Gauna Vritti means not taking the meanings from the dictionaries, meanings of the words and expressions from the dictionaries, but making an imagination. That is called Gauna Vritti. Gauna Vritye eva bhashya karila acharya. He is referring to that acharya, and he is referring to their acharya, and their acharya was Shankaracharya. So he is saying Shankaracharya took the Gauna Vritti, the indirect imagined explanation of the Vedic literatures, and Bhashya Karila Acharya, and he wrote all the Bhashyas. He wrote the Bhashya on Vedanta, he wrote the Bhashya on the 11 Upanishads, all of them. So Shankaracharya, so he's describing that this is what he did. Gauna Vritya ebe Bhashya Karila Acharya. Next he says something very striking, must have shocked the sannyasis. Tahar Shravane. And if you hear the Gauna Vritya Bhashya that Acharya has given, Nashahaya Sarvakarya, then it will destroy everything. Gauna Vritya eva Bhashya Karile Acharya, Tahar Shravane Nashahaya Sarvakarya. Now, this is a very serious statement, that how if you take the Gauna Vritti made by Shankaracharya, Sarvanasha, everything will be destroyed. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes on to say, so you mean to say Shankaracharya gave this explanation, indirect explanation, and he wanted to destroy us? Is that what you are saying? This is a very nice explanation Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives in the next verse. Tanhar nahik dosha, Ishwar Agnapana. That is not his fault. Shankaracharya gave that Gauna Vritti explanation, but that is not his fault. He was following the orders of the Lord. This is actually a very, very wonderful explanation. I'll come to this. Tanhar nahik dosha, Ishwar Agnapana, Gaunartha Karila, Mukhya Artha Achadiya. He did this Gauna Artha Karila and Mukhya Artha Achadiya. Achadiya means he covered up. So this is the way that Shankaracharya has explained the Vedic literatures, and the Vedic literatures have to be understood by the Mukhya Vritti, not the Gauna Vritti. When you see the Mukhya Vritti, you will understand that Krishna is the supreme and loving devotional service is the message of all the Vedic literatures, including the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads. But Shankaracharya has taken the Gauna Vritti way of interpreting the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra, and if anyone hears that, one will be ruined. But it is not his fault, because he was asked by the Lord, by Lord's arrangement, he was asked to present an indirect explanation, and by doing the indirect explanation, he covered the direct meaning. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains here. Now, later on in the purport, Prabhupada explains that how acharyas like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur took many of these verses and explained. And they quote from the Padma Purana. In the Padma Purana, there is a description between Lord Shiva talking to Mother Parvati, and where Lord Shiva says that yes, Mayavadam Asat Shastram Prachanna Bauddham Uchyate Mayaiva Kalpita Devi Kalau Brahmana Rupina. So Shankaracharya is Lord Shiva is saying this to Parvati, that in Kali Yuga I will come and present Mayaiva Kalpita Devi. I will explain an imagined meaning and explanation of the Vedic literatures, and that is known as Mayavadam Asat Shastram. It is a kind of an explanation, Mayavada, which is Asat Shastram. Asat Shastram. Prabhupada also uses this expression in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sometimes the Vedic literatures may be explained in a Gauna Vritti way, but that is not the permanent understanding of the Vedic literatures. So sometimes for a certain circumstance, a Gauna Vritti explanation may be given, but that is not the eternal understanding. It is Asat Shastra. And Lord Shiva is saying, Prachanna Bauddhamuchyate. It is actually a covered Buddhism. And Mayaiva Kalpita Devi Kalau Brahmana Rupine. I will appear in Kali Yuga as a Brahmana and I will present this. So this was the explanation that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was bringing out to the sannyasis of Varanasi. Now in this, there is something very interesting to look at. Because Shankaracharya is also a great Acharya. You cannot deny. He was very powerful, very accomplished, and he traveled all over India and presented his Bhashya and debated with the scholars of his time. And the scholars of his time were all, by and large, Buddhist scholars. And they were also very learned. We know about the Tashkila and Nalanda and all those big universities. And they had extensive literatures. Buddhist ideas were extensively, elaborately discussed. And so there were many scholars. And so Shankaracharya debated with all of them, and he defeated them and explained his explanation of Mayavada from the Vedic literatures. Now, there is a reason why the Lord had arranged it this way. This is what we hear from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this explanation is very nicely given by Bhaktivedanta Thakur and explained in English by Srila Prabhupada. So, after Kali Yuga began, there was a time when people misunderstood the Vedic literatures and they started engaging in animal sacrifices, saying that this is mentioned in the Vedic literatures, and killing of animals, and converted the temples into slaughterhouses. It was at that time the Lord himself appears and tells them as Buddha and tells them to reject the Vedas. Because from Vishnu's breathing the Vedas come. And Vedas are so important in the human society. It gives a direction for the human society about the purpose of life, how we have to conduct our lives. That is the intent of the Vedas. But then when the Vedas were misunderstood, the same Supreme Lord appears as Buddha and tells them, reject the Vedas. So these were all essential steps that has happened historically. And then, after the Vedas were rejected by Buddha, and Buddha was also very powerful because he was Lord himself. When the Lord himself wants to preach something, how with so much force it can come out. So, Buddha preached extensively all over India and converted the whole of India into a Buddhist nation. But that is not the highest conclusion. In Buddhism, there is very little understanding of spirituality. Prabhupada says there is a hint of spirituality only in Buddhism. Not much. For those people who were so engrossed in killing animals and satisfying their needs, that means they will be very much in tamoguna. For people who are in such tamoguna, they cannot understand transcendental subject matter. So he only can barely tell them a little bit about spirituality. Nirvana. All your miseries are actually because of this body. You have to become free from all desires. He just wanted to bring them to that state. And that became the standard understanding of the times, and Buddhism was accepted. Now, to bring about once again the importance of the Vedas, the Lord sent Lord Shiva, and he came as Shankaracharya. And Shankaracharya did something very interesting. Prachanna Bauddham Uchyate. He said that was the common belief of the people, Shunyavada. He taught something that is very similar to Shunyavada, but he said this is there in the Vedic literatures. So there was no doctrinal shift. There was no shift in the understanding of the people. It was more or less like Bauddhavada, the Mayavada, that it is impersonal. There is a truth, there is a higher truth. That truth is formless, featureless, attributeless, all-pervading. And that's what the Vedas say. He took from the Vedic literatures and he explained that kind of a Mayavada. That's why it is called Mayavadam, Asat Shastram, Prachanna Bauddham Uchyate. It's actually another edition of Buddhism. So in Shankara's philosophy also, there is, which is similar to Buddhism, but there is a little bit more understanding of spirituality. Yes, there is a spiritual reality, but that spiritual reality is impersonal and it can be understood from the Vedic literatures. So once again, the Vedas and the importance of the Vedic literatures became established, and Shankaracharya preached all over India and drove away Buddhism and established the Vedic understanding. But that was not the final understanding, and hence the Lord, by his plan, sent next 4 Vaishnava Acharyas: Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbharaka, Vishnu Swami. And they established once again, taking the Mukhya Vritti of the Vedic literatures. Shankaracharya used the Gauna Vritti, an imagined explanation, indirect explanation, and he did that. And then the Vaishnava Acharyas came and presented the direct explanation. And this is the right way to understand the Vedic literatures, not the Gauna Vritti. Now, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this, of course, the sannyasis, they were all it is said that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the sannyasis, they were talking, so the sannyasis Shankara sannyasis, they have an understanding that once you become a sannyasi and you become realized, then you become God. Right? That's you become one with Advaita. There is no Dvaita between the Jiva and the Paramatma and Jivatma, one. And so Mayavadis, they address each other as Narayana. And so all the sannyasis, they said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you are speaking so nicely. Your words are so pleasing to us, and your form is so pleasing to our eyes. And so you are Narayana yourself. And when those sannyasis, they said, you are Narayana, there was truth to that. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Narayana himself. And so, because they made that statement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to bestow his mercy on them. And then all of the sannyasis, they become very receptive to what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying. And then when he gave all these explanations, and then there's a very, very lengthy discourse on Brahman and how all this is to be understood. And when they heard all that, they all became very gladdened, and they all became followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. So that was the conversation that happened between the sannyasis of Varanasi and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out this is the right way of understanding Vedic literatures. And Srila Prabhupada, when he went around the world, very strongly presented this. How can you just imagine some other explanation? And the common, very well-known Gaunavritti explanation is by none other than Mahatma Gandhi himself. So, just what Mahatma Gandhi does is that he has Bhagavad Gita. He used to read Bhagavad Gita extensively. And then he had great respect for Bhagavad Gita. But then his philosophy was non-violence. And Bhagavad Gita says, fight, fight. Krishna is telling, Tyakta, Uchishta, Vigata Jwara, fight Arjuna. Give up your reluctance. And then, how do you reconcile the two? So, Gandhiji came up with an explanation. He said, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha. Here, that Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, it is not referring to any particular place. It refers to our human body. So, the 5 Pancha Pandavas are like the 5 senses. See, this is Gaunavritti. This is not, you won't get this meaning if you see the dictionary. If you see Kurukshetra, dictionary will say it's a holy place in India. If you see Pandavas, they are the 5 characters, main characters in the Mahabharata. This is what the dictionary meanings will say. But he is saying, no, it is the body, it is the 5 senses. This is Gauna Vritti. So this kind of imagined explanation is not the way to understand the Vedic literature. So when the Vedic literature says Nilotpaladhala Shyamam, we don't have to imagine anything. This is the feature of the Lord. This is the complexion of the Lord. We just take the direct meanings of the Vedic literature. So Prabhupada came across many people around the world who would give all these kind of fancy explanation of the Vedic literatures, and Prabhupada would very strongly speak against those and say we have to take the direct meaning. We have to take the direct meaning. 2 things actually. One is to take the direct meaning and we understand that. And the second one is to accept the direct meaning. And meaning, we have that faith that yes, Krishna is saying this is the meaning, and I'll accept it. So there are many times Prabhupada would very, very forcefully say, please accept Krishna, please accept the words of Krishna. These are the words of Krishna. So Prabhupada would very, very emotionally, very strongly appeal to the devotees that we should accept the words of Krishna as it is. Because that is what Arjuna did. Sarvametad ritam manye enmam vadasi Keshava. Everything that you say, I accept that as the truth. Actually, that is what is holding us back in this material world. As devotees, we are not like the the people who have not yet understood the conclusions. We have come to the conclusion that yes, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has a spiritual body. And the final conclusion is that we must surrender to Him. This much theoretically we have understood. But then again in our life, in our practices, in our thinking, have we come to that? Have we accepted Krishna's statement? So that is something that we have to reflect upon. So we have to take the direct meanings of the Vedic literatures and accept it. Yes, Krishna is the Supreme. I must surrender to Him. I must have no interest other than Krishna's interest. And this kind of a purification that has to happen, that happens when, according to Srila Prabhupada's plan, Prabhupada and Acharya, he has formulated how this can be practiced in this world. And that is by serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada in an institutional format that he has created, by cooperating with other devotees. When we work like this, Prabhupada gave a morning till evening what we should do. And he also said, day after day, what should we be working at? Which is to spread Krishna consciousness. And morning till evening, how we have to do our sadhana. Rising early in the morning, chanting 16 rounds, coming before the deity, doing kirtan, the deity worship, offering, taking prasadam, and working for the mission of Srila Prabhupada, spreading Krishna consciousness. If we do this, our life will go through various circumstances. And through all of that, if we are following Prabhupada's instruction, Prabhupada will be guiding us and purifying our heart. And all of that lack of accepting that, yes, Krishna is the Supreme, I'll surrender. What is holding us? It is actually our anarthas. All the different desires, deep-rooted desires to lord over, to enjoy, all of these to control, to enjoy sense gratification. Gradually, all of these different aspects of these anarthas, they will diminish and go away. And finally, if we please Prabhupada by our actions, by our efforts to serve Prabhupada's mission, we may not do, it is not required that one has to do very big thing. It is nothing to do with big or small. According to whatever the Lord allows us to do, Srila Prabhupada allows us to do, we should do. And by doing that, when Prabhupada is pleased, this is the whole important thing. A pure devotee should be pleased. He should personally be pleased that yes, here is this devotee. He tried all his life. He was chanting. Maybe he was not chanting properly, but he tried and he was trying to serve my mission. And then when a pure devotee becomes pleased, then Krishna becomes pleased. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. This is the way, this is actually the secret, the confidential message of Krishna consciousness. Many people miss out various things they miss out in the path. Sometimes some people get stuck with Gauna Vritti and they get lost. As Shankaracharya said, they will be lost. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Sarva Nashahaya, everything will be destroyed. Some of us will make it, okay, we'll not go beyond the Gauna Vritti, come to Mukhya Vritti, we understand. But still there, we get misled because the anarthas are so many. Innumerable shades of material desires that are there. And hence, the format that Srila Prabhupada has given, serving his mission in an institutional framework, in the association of other devotees, and working cooperatively, and serving his mission, will take us through different phases of life, and purification will happen. And if Prabhupada is pleased, we will be perfect in our Krishna consciousness. This is the message that Prabhupada wanted us to follow. Thank you very much. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.